great to see what's going on. I'm planning on voting for it. I'm planning on knocking on doors.
Thank you.
But I want to have an answer to the question when people ask, well, I know there were a lot of different alternatives discussed for the level of the tax and the 2 tiers and how much. What are you encouraging people to say as far as kind of the nitty-gritty of the numbers?
So we wanted a tax system that was going to be fair for all Coloradans and was going to keep Colorado competitive for economic development across the country. So what we built is a system that asks those who make more money to pay a little bit more, but that keeps Colorado with the 41st lowest tax burden of all the 50 states, and that keeps us with the lowest tax burden of our 7 surrounding neighbors. And so we do think that we think the flat tax would have been really onerous on our working class and lowest income families. It would have doubled the annual tax increase for them of what we have proposed in this system. And so I think it was really important for equity and for kind of economic competitiveness to move away from a flat tax and move on to something that's a little more progressive. But it is still, of the 35 states that have progressive rates, we'll have the 28th lowest rate. And so I think this is a very mild move that helps inject some of the resources we need, but doesn't put Colorado at a disadvantage into surrounding states. Thank you for that question. Yeah, Owen.
So that covers where the tax money comes from the different sources. Can you talk a little bit about how it then is dispersed around the state?
Yes. So the short answer is every district in the state will see a significantly increased investment. And so I like to say there are winners and there are bigger winners in this formula. And so a lot of the dollars will go to the key investments I described: early childhood education for all the kids that need it, full-day kindergarten for every child in the state, extended school years and school days for districts and schools that want to do that. A major investment in teaching and leadership, so in attracting and retaining great teachers and great principals. Putting key resources into the places where we need them the most, things like funding for special education, funding for at-risk students, funding for English language learners, funding for gifted and talented students, funding for rural districts, funding for schools that are falling apart, as well as for technology in all of our schools to help them emerge into the 21st century. So those are, we've created an innovation fund that will help districts and schools and teachers who have innovative practices they want to be able to scale, to be able to get access to those in addition to the regular dollars that fund schools. So we've tried to identify what the places are that will have the biggest impact on student success, and then try to fund those specific regions. I would say when you get outstate, this is the most aggressive pro-rural school finance formula that's ever been written. I mean, this is the biggest winners by far in this formula are our smallest and most rural districts. And so those places will be up $2,000, some of them $2,500 per student. But those are the places where you have buildings falling apart and you have schools that need $9 million of improvements just to meet fire code, and their total district's bonding capacity, if they maxed out to their entire tax capacity, is $4 million. So they're never ever going to fill that hole without our help. And our best fund now is at $0. So there's zero money left to fund the construction of a single school in this state unless we do this. Good question. Other questions? Yes?
Can you talk for a minute about how the funding will compensate or complement or change the way CSAP funding currently disperses education funds throughout the state? Is there any tie to it, or is this something that you consider to be separate and advantageous because it's not part of the CSAP?
It is. We do not tie funding directly to school performance. There are some additional resources we offer to schools that are struggling the most, so like these extended school days and school years are targeted towards the schools that we know need more time to help kids be successful. But there is no penalty for low performance. You don't take dollars away from schools that are struggling the most. We think that's sort of counterintuitive.
Would you say that this is the opposite, that this would help where CSAP would reward a school that performs well, that this might fill in that gap where a school is performing less and needs that extra time?
That's right. This tries to provide the additional dollars directly to the schools that need the most support with real transparency on how they're spent. So we'll be the first state in the country that has full taxpayer transparency for where every single dollar goes every day, that you can see in an easy to use format. But our belief is if you put the right amount of transparency and accountability on those schools already, what they need are resources to implement the programs they need to be successful. And we know the big ones there are early intervention, full day K and ECE, plus additional time in the day and time in the year. So yeah, I think we reverse the trend of give more dollars to schools that are already the most successful and strangle the ones that are struggling the most, and try to actually invest in the ones that need the most support. Great question. Yes?
What kind of coalitions are being built to help ensure that this measure passes?
I think we will have the broadest coalition we've ever put together for a statewide ballot. We'll raise, I think we'll be able to raise the $10 million we've set out to raise. We'll have a combination of business and labor and education groups and reform groups and you know, PTAs, parents, student groups. So I think we'll have a really broad coalition. We have that beginning already. Groups like Great Ed Colorado who've been out for a while doing that. And so I think that's what it is going to take to be successful, and that's why we have a policy that intentionally built a really broad intent. I have time for one or two more. Yes?
Since you're asking us to go out and knock on doors and help to get signatures for this, I guess what have you heard is the toughest question you've gotten on your proposal so far, and how would you hope that we would be able to answer it when we're faced with that same question?
Great question. The question was, what's the toughest question you've gotten so far, and how would you answer it? I think the toughest question, which is the answer is part of what we talked about tonight, is our schools have so much money already, isn't this just going to be more money into the same place? And so, you know, how do we know we're going to get any different results off of what we're doing than what we're doing right now? And so that's why I think the key message is this is really making the smart investments that we know make the biggest difference for kids. So it's not just, you know, I supported Prop 103 2 years ago, but that was really a blank check for K-12 to just put more money back into the system and hope it all went better. This is structured very differently, in which case we're saying there's going to be far more deliberate direction for where the funds go, far more research based behind where they go and what they'll do, and far more transparency and accountability for what results we get. So I think that's probably, you'll sometimes get questions about para, which is like the Republican talking point right now that this is a boondoggle for para, which is just false. The fund is constitutionally protected to not go into bailout para. The items are specifically aligned to the reforms and the items in Senate Bill 213 which don't include para. So if you get that, the short answer is not happening, but that's more of kind of a Walker Stapleton, Mike Rosen kind of argument. But at the door, I think what we get more of is, well, we spend so much on K-12 already, what will this do? I think that's the biggest one.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. One more before Ava pulls me off. Yes?
I'm just curious, Senator Johnson, there are a lot of organizations that are, you know, working and going to be out knocking on doors.
Yes.
And obviously as the Young Democrats, we're going to do our part to help you out.
Thank you.
Is there an organization that we should try to work with, or just work directly out of your office, or how, if there's any individual who's not,
yes,
you know, as involved in like I sit on the board, just an individual that wants to give some time in the afternoon, where do they go?
So we would love you to have you run through our office for right now. There will be, we have an issue committee that's growing, and they'll have an additional campaign structure. But we spent so much time with teachers, principals, superintendents, community leaders around the state. We have a really built network for people that are prepared to walk with us when we go to Boulder or Greeley or to Jeffco or Aurora. So the easy thing is our website, MikeJohnston.org, or Leslie and Damien are here, so it's L. Caldwell at MikeJohnston.org. The easiest one is just email me, Mike at MikeJohnston.org. And so we'll be out walking every week in July and really every day in August, September, and October. And so if you want to just plug in, have folks reach out to me and we'll figure out what day or location is easiest for you. So yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, great. Well, I want to thank you all again so much for coming. Thanks for all your help, and thank you in advance for all of the miles we'll walk and doors we'll knock together. I think it will be something that 20 years from now we'll be able to say we were a part of really changing the trajectory of the state. It's not often you have that chance. I think this gives us that opportunity. So thanks so much for coming.